Hi everybody, welcome back to the PTC podcast. Today I'm with old friend Ciaran. How you doing, Ciaran?
Oh, great, Kate. Thanks for having me.
No worries. We are. Ciaran is probably one of my first ever PT clients, but back in England 12 years ago, in a job that I absolutely hated with Virgin Active in Sunbury. But Ciaran, you've got a book called Listen by Ciaran McBreene. This is for anyone watching the video. So I'll give you a quick intro as it's written on your thing. Ciaran McBreene is a professional mindset coach and educator who excels in getting the best out of people. He's created the CMB Wellbeing Warrior program, which to date has equipped many students with the resources and skills to deal with the countless challenges of modern day society. The program improves the behavior and lifestyle of participants and provides them with the skills for life. Listen, which is the name of the book, demonstrates how to put these skills into practice. So, what was the inspo behind that?
Funny enough, Kate, back to where we first met, in a lovely gym, I must say.
Yeah.
Lovely gym. My time working in Hounslow, West London. My first teaching job. I took the interview. I got there, and the door was hanging off the hinges. The place was falling apart, and I said to myself, "Oh my goodness, what am I doing here?" And they offered me the job, and nervously I said yes. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to last a day here. And 5 years later, I left. And the day I left, I cried because I ended up loving it. It wasn't just being a teacher. You know, you were everything. You were involved with the police because there was so much things going on in the background with the families. You're involved with the family themselves. The amount of free school meal forms I filled out because Mum or Dad wouldn't do it. There was lots of lost students in this school. What I mean by lost students, students who had to fend for themselves, students who were carers of their own parents, students who had no parents or no involvement, no support from home. Mum might have been a prostitute, if I can say that, drug addict, very socioeconomic situation. And I'd find myself sitting, just talking to these students and listening to their stories, and they all had a story. There was lots of pain. And the day I left, I come over to the Middle East. It was hard. It was hard to walk away from that because you were having such a positive impact on these people and their families. And I came to this beautiful school, amazing facilities, lots of wealth, and there were still lost students. But this time, Mum was not a prostitute or a drug addict, but she was a managing director of a company. Dad was a CEO. It was affluent neglect. They were not present in their life. And I found that again, I was sitting on the floor over lunchtime, just having a conversation with this child. Now, it wasn't a case of they just open up and tell me all about their difficulties at home. Day 1 might be, hi. Day 2 might be, what's happening? Day 3 might be, what did you do last night? And so on and so on and so on. But eventually you build trust and you build rapport and you build connection. And eventually you hear these fascinating stories. And one day I took it upon myself to make adults aware of how difficult life as a teenager is. And the kind of things that teenagers are going through, because we compare our life to theirs, and we think it's very easy for us to think, oh, go on, get on with it, it's okay, I could do it when I was your age, but we've got different issues now, different challenges now, lots of comparisons, lots of social media pressure, and I decided, I'm going to get these stories out there, and not these particular stories, but the idea of these stories. So in 2020, it was just before COVID actually, I sent out a survey and I went to 48 different countries. And I wanted to get a grasp of different curriculums, different cultures, different types of people. And I got these children to tell their stories. And those who responded with a really in-depth story, I followed up with a Zoom interview. And that's what the book is about. So for me, the highlight of the book was to give these children a voice, to give their pain, their tears, their blood in some circumstances, the time it deserved. And if one child or one parent can learn and resonate and connect with somebody else, then we've hit the jackpot.
What age are these kids?
You're talking teenagers. You're talking, 13 to 18.
And were you teaching in the school, or were you working as a social worker, as a psychologist?
I was a PE teacher.
PE teacher. Yeah. So you were just chatting to these, just because they just tapped into your,
the wonderful thing
compassion.
The wonderful thing about PE is that it's a likable subject. You're not giving homework.
Yeah, fair.
Certainly not back in my time in London, and you were there. You were seeing a different side of the students. You were not asking them to do to do homework, to write and write and write, but you're actually providing something, a nicer platform. You're seeing them shining a bit more because you're seeing them in a better light. You're creating a better connection because the connection is there. They're more willing to open up.
Because you're not the teacher standing behind the desk shouting at them to stop talking and to stop.
Absolutely, there's more understanding there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there was almost like a uniqueness to your position. So you're sitting talking to the kids. Like, how do you learn what questions to ask? How do you figure it out? You figuring it out on the fly? You just listen to them?
Great question. Yeah, you're just using your own intuition.
Yeah.
You know, or your own. The thing about, I suppose, being a sports coach or a PE teacher is that we've got a lot of the fundamentals of actually mindset coaching without knowing it. You know, you've got that skill. Or maybe it's an Irish person, an Irish thing that we can just have a conversation.
Yeah.
We're comfortable to have a conversation with people. And we're comfortable to ask questions. And maybe we're comfortable to probe and maybe to dig and to stretch some people. Of course, everyone, that's not natural for everyone. But I found that came natural to me. And as I progressed, and for the sake of the book, you know, when I wrote the book, I was a certified mindset coach. So I had that toolkit in me, that bank of questions to ask.
Did you go doing that coaching post? Like, did you get the stimulus from the kids first and then go and study the mindset thing afterwards?
Yeah, to give you a bit of context in this, I was moving up the ladder in school, and the more I moved up, the less I liked it.
Right.
You know, you get very restricted, very controlled. And I was doing a master's degree in leadership and management. And in my final year, I could branch off into coaching and mentoring or leadership and management. And I said to myself, you know what, this might open up a few more doors, a few more avenues for me. And I decided to branch off into that. And again, I found it came natural to me. And I progressed there with a first-class honours master's degree. And I was very proud of that because which possibly we'll discuss, my academic background was very, very poor, very, very weak, based on what I was measured against. And to come out with a first-class honours master's degree was a big eye-opener because the system frustrates me. The system that I had in the year 2001 in Ireland restricted me. The system or the assessment method here amplified my strengths, you know. So to go back to your question, I suppose, I did a master's degree in coaching and mentoring, and then I found I had something here. I had something special, and my lecturer was definitely telling me that anyway.
Right.
And I went on to do my coactive training, and then my ICF professional certification in 2021.
So 2001, are you a student or are you a teacher?
2001?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a student.
You're a student.
Just finished my leaving cert.
And then you went, what did you study?
So I finished.
You went straight into PE teaching?
No. Sure. My destiny was a local shoe warehouse. You know? Yes.
Destiny?
Destiny. I got 155 points, Kate, my leaving cert. And that's why I'm saying the measurement of a first-class honours master's degree and 155 points. Now, for those who don't know what that is, we know that that's very poor.
Well, it's out of 600 when you're doing your school exams in Ireland. Back in Ireland, I think it's different again now. I think they've changed it now. So if you got 75%, you'd get either 75 or 80 points. I can't remember. So you get 100%. You get between 90 and 100. You get 100 points. So medicine and super science and aeronautical engineering and those things were like 600 points. Whatever. See you later. You got 145. I got 345. I literally just found a course in February of my 6th year, my final year of school. I found a course online that you could get in on your sporting ability. I literally threw my pen up in the air. And I was like, see you later, studying.
Yeah. I hated it. I hated school. I wasn't a happy teenager, you know. The horrible hormonal, I don't know what, the acne around the chin. I had a lot of that. I hated my body.
Where did you grow up?
In Cootehill and Cavan.
In Cavan?
Yeah. And, you know, I was, from a sports scene, I was doing well. Cross country, Gaelic football. You know, that was all moving in the right direction. Everyone's seen this kind of confident young boy, but inside I was broken. I was the absolute opposite, you know. And school, really, like every Sunday evening, you know, the anxiety feeling associated with school was just horrendous. And I can still, and I've put this in my book, I can still hear the engine noise waiting for the bus to pick me up on a Monday morning, and that dreaded feeling. And
So
you know,
you hated it?
I hated it.
What was
I
it
hated
about it you hated?
I didn't see the connection with my future.
Right.
And this is what I'm talking about with measurement.
So what I'm also asking is, you weren't bullied, you weren't picked on?
No. I did have a hard time. There's one particular guy I did have a hard time
Right.
with. Yeah. There was a jealousy thing going on there.
Right.
And if he only knew how I actually felt, because he's seen me as the captain of the football team, he's seen me as the cross country, and so on and so on and so on. But actually, you know, I was far from this confident, cocky person that people might have thought I was, you know. But the measurement of, you know, back in the day, kid, as you know, it was 100% exam, the assessment.
Yeah.
You know, and I just didn't do well in exams. So already there's a limiting belief there where, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
I can't do this. What's the point? And because of that, the 13, 14, 15-year-old Ciaran McBreene just gave up. Gave up. And if there had been a little bit of hope there, I might have, you know, kind of got on the horse a little bit and improved, but I gave up. And look at, you know, the teachers weren't overly inspiring, you know, in the time we had in school. However, I have to take full responsibility. You know, I didn't do what I needed to do. I didn't do my homework. You know, there was no connection there. There was no joy there. And you know.
Did that lead to you getting in trouble then the next day? That kind of thing?
I wasn't I was good. I was a good lad.
Yeah.
So the teachers liked me. I wasn't a bad student. I was just a lazy student.
Right.
A lazy student. You know, like watching Ireland on telly or Tottenham Hotspur on telly always took priority over doing my homework, you know, and I'd be getting my friends to do my homework.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'd be especially maths. You know, I hated it so much, and you know, my dad used to try his best to help me. And there was one time I particularly locked myself in the bathroom. You know, I did not want to do homework, and then the next day I rocked up and I said, "Oh, Dad, everything's cool, it's done." He said, "What do you mean it's done?" He said, "Show me." And I got my friend to do it at school, and sure he could see right through me.
Yeah.
You know, because he was like, "What does that mean?" And sure, I hadn't a clue.
Yeah.
Hadn't a clue. And I laugh now, but you know, it's I kind of wish there was somebody at that time to put their arm around me and say, "Come on, Mac, we can do this," you know. And my parents did everything. Do you know, and my teachers, it's not a blame game, but kind of like the mentor in school, somebody who's maybe me as a PE teacher, the person who's not, you know, really driving you academically, maybe the person who just understands you a little bit more. You know, the person you can open up to and say, "Look, sir, I just don't get this," you know. Somebody maybe to show you a bit, maybe empathy as opposed to get your work done.
Yeah.
But then, you know, there was a shoe factory across the road, and I looked out every day for 5 years at this factory, thinking, I cannot wait to get in there, get me out of this environment,
Really,
and get me in there. And I was looking at people going in, and the cars drive, like everything took my attention apart from what the teacher was saying, you know. And I finished school, and guess what? I got a job in there, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it. It was a kick up the backside.
What was the job? What were you doing?
I was packing shoes. And
What shoes were they?
They were drifter shoes. They were like and actually, funny enough, they were Irish dancing shoes.
Okay.
As well, yeah. And look, it's nothing against this company. They were great people and really supportive, and still are great people, you know. And people who work there, you know, everyone finds their niche. And I understand people, my dad, for example, you know, worked in the same office for 40 years plus. You know, we're in a generation now where we do have more of a choice and we can take more control, you know. But I didn't like it, and I applied for Cavan College, which is one of these courses, kid, if you remember, like a vocational course with a government support, you know. And I did it, and it was sports and leisure, and I loved it.
Right.
And I was reading about the anatomy. I was reading about exercise. I was reading about, you know, about how swimming pool operations work and all that. You know, I took an interest. Because I took an interest, I read more. Because I read more, I was doing better. Because I was doing better, I got belief in myself, and I left that year as a student of the year. You know, and that was less than 12 months after failing school.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you fail the exams, or did you get enough to get through?
No, I got enough to get through. Yeah. I got enough to get through. But this course, you know, everyone would have been accepted onto it.
Yeah.
You know. So I got on. So then that brought me to Sligo IT. And then I did well in Sligo IT, and then I moved to University of Chester in North of England. and that was a sports science and business degree. And then after that, I did a PGC in physical education. Now, if I had got 700 points in my leaving cert, I could have went to Limerick to do PE
Yeah.
straight away.
Yeah.
But of course, 155 is a lot less than 700. Why was it 700? It wasn't based on academics. It was based on the fact of supply and
It was
demand.
just a demand, wasn't it? Yeah.
Demand.
Yeah, that was the
Everybody
problem in
wanted to
Ireland,
be a PE teacher in Ireland. So well, not everybody, but lots of young boys.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You know. And so if I had got there straight away, it might not have worked out.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have it in my toolkit. Maybe I wasn't mature enough.
Yeah.
And I've got absolutely no regrets. I went round a long way.
Yeah.
But that's okay. And that's what we need to tell young people. That if it's not working out for you, just pause and have a look around and explore and see what else and what other avenues can I take here.
Yeah, man, I did the same. I, like I just said, I found this sports management course in UCD where you just had to pass your exams, matriculation standard. I had to Google what that meant, and that just meant pass your stuff, have a language and something else, biology done. And then I went into the first day of lectures, September of whatever year, and it was IT, and after lunch was finance. And I was like, I'm in the wrong place. This is sports management. What am I doing? So then I did, and I never, ever, ever balanced. I dropped out of accounting in like 15 and didn't do it for my leaving cert because I didn't get it. Debit to receiver, credit to givers is about all I knew. And that's didn't get me through. And the first time I ever balanced the books, pencil and paper, was the exam. And I nailed it. I was like, oh my God, I've nailed it. It's the same. It's the same number here and here. So that meant I passed that module. Never had to do it again. I'm 47%. I'm never doing finance again. And then the IT thing was there. And basically, long story short, you needed to get over 2 years. They split the degree into the first year of the degree into 2 years, part-time. So I went in there. All the scholarship people are in the class, the squash players, the rugby players, whatever. Plus a lot of old people who are gone back into university. They're also in this same diploma course. And you get 60+% average, plus 60+% in your dissertation. You go into year 2 in the degree. Sweet, that's my track. I'll take that. Didn't get those results. Spent a year appealing. Well, I spent the next September to January appealing. And while I was doing that appeal, I was like, I better do something with this time so I don't just sit at home. So I was working all sorts of I worked as a postman. I worked as all these sorts of crazy day jobs. And I was doing a night course in fitness instruction. And the night course had step aerobics. It had dance to music. It had like old school. This is 2004 now. So really old school stuff. And I got everything that they were saying about anatomy. And I remember in the diploma in UCD, it was a massive auditorium. I can remember the guy standing at the front of the class with a skeleton arm going, flexion, extension. That's about all I learned in my anatomy. I hadn't a clue. The next year, the night course in fitness instruction, I'm doing anatomy again. And I'm listening. I'm 2 feet away from the teacher now. It's a small little room at night time in David Lloyd Leisure Gym. And I'm getting it. And everyone's looking at me going, how are you getting this? And I was like, I just get it. I don't know. I'm listening. I'm tuned in. I get it. The appeal didn't go my way. I got a job part-time in a gym in Dublin for a summer and realized I don't want this career. I don't want to be a PT. I don't want any of this. I'm getting out of here. So I went traveling around the world. Had a light bulb moment when I met this old boy from Derry. Both of us were on a rooftop in Sydney. The building was going to be demolished, so we were stripping out all the valuable stuff on this roof. And he's telling me his life story, and I'm like, oh shit, we're the same, me and this guy. No career, no education, no nothing. Running away from everything back home. Lovely sunny weather, but this isn't forever. I'm 21, I need to sort my stuff out. So I went back to, like you said, one of those PGs, wasn't a PGC, it was a vocational place. Did a bunch of diplomas, went to England, 23, sat in first year sport rehabilitation. Everybody there was 18, 19, away from mommy and daddy for the first time, you know, getting smashed during the week. At the student nights out, I'm like, I'm not going out. I've got anatomy tomorrow morning. Learned anatomy again for the 4th course. I'm on anatomy now. Like, honestly, like you said, if you had gone straight in, you wouldn't have the toolkit. If I had gone through that sports management course, I wouldn't have a clue about anatomy. I would have got enough to get through the exam. For me, when I'm working with clients day to day, I feel like a version of Rain Man when people are talking about movements and what hurts and what doesn't hurt, because I know every single layer that's between your skin and your bone. Do you know what I mean? In your knee, in your shoulder, in your ankle. I know it all. I can tell you exactly any of the joints right now. We could sit and go through it because I had my anatomy drilled into me. That then meant I became an anatomy teacher, and now I'm teaching it. When you teach it, it goes to a different part of your brain where you're just I'm just Einstein now of this low level anatomy stuff that, you know, all musculoskeletal. Forget about your biochemistry. I don't know that stuff. But it's absolutely fine to go the long way, if not better for you. Do you know? In my university class, I don't know who came out with the BSc level and is still working at that level. Do you know? A bunch of people went on to do masters in physios, and one of them is here, Amy, and then the rest of them, I know other people are working in like insurance, health related, but they've gone down that route. Other people are working, just completely quit, and they're doing something completely non-related, you know. But I'm the only one, I think, who's took that BSc and has just gone, I need to get working now.
But I think you've undersold yourself there, excuse me. You know, you got 300 plus points, so you had basics, so you had the intellect there, and not everyone gets into UCD, right?
I didn't get in, so that course points wise was more than I got. It was 450 or 420 or 480, I can't remember, somewhere in the fours. I got 345. The happiest thing about my 345 is my sister got the exact same. So I was like, sweet, we're the same amount of smartness. I'm not the stupidest. She's not the stupidest. Let's go.
It's fair.
Let's move on. That's about the only thing. I just had to pass, to be honest. But man, I literally to use the word literally, I threw my pen up in the air and I was like, I'm done. Yeah. Matriculation standard is just pass it. I can pass all this with my eyes closed. I hated studying. I didn't mind school. I hated sitting down when I wasn't in school and going through the same stuff I've just gone through today. So I used to really try in school and listen. I used to really try and I want to learn this. Not that I had like a plan. I don't want to go home and not do my homework because you have to do it. Just because you get in trouble. But I was like, I know I need to learn this because they're going to get a test on it. But I hated studying. People had study plans there. We used to do actually supervised study in the school. So we'd go school all day, 4 o'clock rugby, go home, dinner, back to the school for 7:45 to 9:45 p.m. of 2 hours supervised study. So I'm spending 12 hours in my school.
Is this a boarding school?
No, day school. So, but I live very close to the school. We all were in that catchment area of Ciaran. Man, I figured out that if I sit back in my chair, if I put my baseball cap down and I open my book so that the back of the book is on the corner of the table, open it, I can sleep. And I slept like that for however long, and there was different teachers taking the supervision. And then one day, one of the teachers came down, slammed his keys on the table, and he's like, "Right, take that baseball cap off." And he would never let me wear the cap. I hated studying. I would go through tick all the boxes, and I just didn't.
And this is the thing, you know, like who likes it? You know, there's a certain minority of people.
But it's like what you said. I'll tell you who likes it: the people who are engaged in the topic.
And that's it.
That's who likes it.
And when I work with teenagers, you know, there's an element where I just say, look, we just need to get through this. And if you can let's say, for example, if it's the English curriculum, GCSEs, you get through these couple of years and just try your best, provide your best, put your best foot forward and get through it. Then you get to select your subjects. When you're selecting your subjects, then you're talking about your passion, you're talking about connection. Now, there's a pro and con involved there. With the British curriculum, you're choosing specific subjects early. Yeah. Early. The Irish curriculum, for example, we still do 6 to 9 subjects as a leaving cert. So there's pros and cons of both. You know, the whole idea is, and this goes for adults as well, is that you work your best with what you have. You look within, you look at your strengths, and how can you amplify your strengths here? The only thing I knew in school is I didn't really want to work in an office. It's really the only thing, and I don't really know where that came from. And then kind of like you, I was sporty. I was really sporty as a kid. And for some reason, I remember when I was in school, the guys used to ask me questions that they should have asked in the health and fitness professional. They weren't asking me about the chains come off their bike, how do they get a new derailleur, like they need a new bike thing.
they were asking me about my back's a little sore, or you know, I'm not really fit enough. I don't know why you're asking me, but for some reason I had this magnetism thing towards that kind of question.
And you've hit the nail on the head. There's a magnet there. There was something.
Yeah,
there was
I don't know
something
what it
within. Was. There was something that was telling you, these people are coming to me for a reason. You know, and I look at PE, and I've left the PE teaching industry, but I absolutely love it. I love the job. I just lost love with the system. But I look back to under 8. I was the under 8 Gaelic football captain, and I used to bring the lads down to train, and I would deliver the session when the days that we weren't training. So if we were training on a Saturday morning, I was bringing the lads down to the football pitch with a bag of balls in my bag. Under 8, you know. So I look back and I think to myself, there was something there about helping other people.
Yeah, man, being a leader, being a coach, but you're also figuring out how the conveying of a message how teaching, how, you know, all that kind of stuff.
And if anyone can combine, you know, what they love doing, with some of their strengths, then we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you're 8 and you're coaching, I'm surprised you didn't actually just become a football coach or become an actual sports, you know, professional sports athlete. But there's probably like a lot of leadership stuff in there. But basically, I'm thinking back now, like what you're effectively now being the arm over the kids' shoulders that you wish you had.
Absolutely. And that's no disrespect to my teachers or my parents and my uncles, for example, and aunts. I always try to convey this message where there's no blame game, because, you know, our parents' generation and certainly our grandparents' generation didn't have the toolkit and didn't have the education that we have now about being fully present or the needs of what teenagers need, you know, and it's very, very difficult. But yeah, that was definitely missing. Now, of course, everybody could you know, pick at stuff like that, because my father drove me everywhere around the country to run a cross country race, you know, to play Gaelic football. So there was lots of, you know, fully present in the sense of you know, doing what needed to be done. I suppose just talking from you know, I remember one time this particular guy was giving me a hard time in school. I tried to tell him, you know, and he didn't give me what I needed. Not because he didn't want to, but he just didn't know how.
Yeah.
And as an adult, we can appreciate that and we can accept that, and we can now put the arm over our parents', you know, shoulder and work with them. And there's nothing that gives me more joy than seeing my parents being affectionate to my children.
Oh, that's cool.
Because there's learning there.
Yeah.
I might have missed it, but at least my children are receiving it. And that shows me that there's learning, there's growth, and we can all learn and we can all grow.
If a kid came to me right now, sat down on the floor there, and everyone's gone, just me and him or her in the room, and they tell me they're getting bullied, I would not have a clue what to say. Do you know what I mean? And that night, like, there's no. I mean, I'll read. You've just given me a copy of your book just now, so I will read it when we get back. But I would have no skill set to do with that. I would have no idea. Where do you start?
Well, where would you start with an adult?
You would definitely start with listening, getting them to talk and try and figure it out. Yeah, I don't know. You would definitely just start with listening for sure. Oh, look, the name of the book. Listen. Maybe that's what I read.
And that's
maybe that gave me the clue.
I do a module on listening, you know, where we break down. There's 3 levels of listening. You know, there's I listening, you know, you listening, and co-listening. And we all need to get towards co-listening. We need to read between the lines of what somebody's saying, especially a teenager or your wife. You know, how's it going? Fine. You know it's not fine. You know it's not fine.
So taking that example, was that I listening, you listening, or co-listening? Is that the 3 options?
Co-listening is you're reading between the lines. You're looking at the body language. You're feeling the energy in the room. So if your wife or a teenager says, "I'm fine," clearly they're not fine. And then we need to use our questioning toolkit to get, you know, what's really going on here. What's the underlying issue?
So that's the gold standard of best communication, the co-listening. What are the first 2? You just said.
So I listening is where it's all about you. You know, so we could be having a conversation and I joke about this. we've all got a friend who's got a better story, right?
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
okay.
and I call him 11 Arif. So if you've been to Tenerife, he's been to 11 Arif.
Yeah, okay. The story topper, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so when you're expressing something to him or to her, and he jumps or she jumps straight in with their story, like, oh, for goodness sake, you didn't even hear me.
Yeah.
You didn't hear, you were talking, or if somebody actually is responds with advice. Sometimes we just don't want advice, Kate.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just want to be listened to. We just want to be heard. And, that tells me that within 30 seconds, this other person was already creating the response to what I'm saying. And that means they've missed out on potential golden nuggets of what's really going on in me. And then we've got, the second one where you're fully present, but only with words.
So those two are first eye listening. The
Yes,
story
yes.
topper, the 11 Arif, and the advice giver.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So then we move into where you're fully present in the conversation, but only words. And you're fully embraced in what the person's saying, but maybe not what they're emotionally saying. And we need to get away from that as well, and that's better. But where you want to go with is the co-listening, is where you're really engaged in the conversation, the whole conversation. The feelings, the tones, the expressions, and the feel. You hear a lot about the gut feeling. Gut feeling is very powerful.
Yeah.
And feel the conversation, feel it.
So are you always just trying to get into the co-listening, or do you try and flip between the two? Obviously, what if people do want advice? I suppose you got to figure that out. You got to listen and figure it out.
Yeah, a really powerful coaching question would be, would you like my opinion on this? Or can I share what I think? And what you're doing.
Because I never said no.
Sorry?
No, don't.
Yeah. Well, if you're using fully co-listening skills, you'd learn that this person doesn't want advice here.
Yeah.
But my point there is that everything is psychological. So even if you're talking to a teenager, and this applies to adults as well, but just the example with a teenager, that they may not want my advice. But if I get permission, if I ask them, can I tell you it? You're still giving them control. Teenagers want control.
Right.
We have to play the game. We have to get into their mind. We have to use reverse psychology to think that we're helping them, but they think that they're in control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, as a teacher of 18 years, you pick these skills up. You know what works for the 21 people sitting in front of you for 18 years. There's lots of experience there, lots of examples, lots of learning, lots of failure, and realizing what works. And this is something powerful that really, really works, is making the other person feel in control, but actually you're in control.
I remember you telling me when we met a very long time ago, I don't know if you'd put the book together or if you'd just been putting chapters together, about the story of, like, I might have this blurred across a few stories, but you'd given kids some homework or a task or something, and the kids could come back the next day and a bunch of them had done it and some of them hadn't. And one of the kids' answers was that their parents are watching Netflix, or they couldn't get help or something like that.
That's right. So that particular situation, when I give homework, it's not academic homework. It's self-awareness homework. It's gratitude homework. It's appreciation homework. It's about doing something nice, And this particular example was to find out what it is the people around us think of us. Let's build I was getting them to build a kind of an image where they're going to talk about all the nice things about themselves. What am I good at? What does people like about me? And one of the tasks of this was go and ask mum and dad what it is you like about me. Simple question. And the mum said, stop annoying me. We're watching Netflix.
Wow. That's heavy. So what do you do with that kid? What do you say? What do you respond to that?
Great question. You put me on the spot here. I'm trying to think.
What
back
did
to
the other?
situation.
So how many kids were doing this?
Oh, the whole class was doing it. Yeah. So what I would have done in that particular situation is I would have dampen the feelings associated with it. Okay. Well, first of all, that can't be nice to feel like that. You know,
So
number
just
one.
one other little thing. This is in front of the rest of the class.
No,
as well.
no, she would have come up to me.
And said it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just you and her. Yeah.
So then I would have, dampened the situation by showing a bit of empathy. That can't be nice. Okay, well, come over. Let's sit down together, and let's look at a different way we can do this. What can you tell me about you? What do you like about you? And this is what I like about you. And you might, I'm saying it to you as I would say it to her.
Yeah.
So you're opening up this kind of nicer environment. Then mum and dad are too busy to talk to me because they're watching Netflix.
Yeah, that's heavy, especially when, I don't know what to say to that. That's real strange.
Yeah, and you know what, Kate? Regrettably, I could tell you 100 stories.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea of the book, is that there's 20 topics of 20 areas that we want adults to go, whoa, is my child feeling this way? And the thing about this is I've had people, my sister, perfect example, she doesn't have children. She's a teacher. And she called me crying. She went, oh my God, chapter 5 is me.
Right.
So we can all relate to it because we've all been a teenager.
Yeah.
And it's there's lots of learnings, and the biggest learning is that this is going on. I'm not, I respond to each topic with a module from my Student Wellbeing Warrior program, but actually for me the real learning is in the story, is in that wonderful person who's generously giving up their pain to help other people.
So there's only, how many? You must have, hundreds.
Oh, hundreds.
Yeah.
What I've tried to do here is I've tried to amalgamate stories. So for example, one story is not just that one child. So there might be a story on physical bullying, and that might have been 5 interviews with 5 different people.
Right.
And I'm amalgamating all them. So I'm trying to bring in little bits of their personality. It was very funny, actually, the editor. Lots of challenging conversations with the editor, because the editor would have been saying, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I know, but that's how she said it. This is her story.
Yeah.
This is hers. And I want the voice of this child to come through in the book.
Is there a standout thing or a couple of issues that stand out that adults are most oblivious to? That's...
There's just, I think it's chapter 18, Fatima, self-harm, heartbreaking story. I actually cried writing it. I it's funny because I'm sitting there writing, and it's coming out of my fingers, and the tears are coming down my eyes because I can see it. And obviously I've shared the chat with this. Her name isn't Fatima. I've changed all the names, but the whole idea is that the reader is feeling it. And I'm building the picture. I'm building the scene. I'm setting the tone to connect the person's story and the reader.
Is self-harm one of the more common things?
The most common theme, to be blunt, is that there's not enough parents out there listening. Every chapter has a sentence along the lines of, I tried to tell mom.
I thought that's what you were going to say, yeah.
But she just wouldn't listen. Or, if only dad listened to me, I wouldn't have had to experience this.
Yeah, that's heavy, eh? I'm trying to think of my own. It'll probably come through when I start reading the stories.
And that's the thing. The amount of, as I said, my sister, but so many people have contacted me saying, oh my goodness, I'm in your book.
Yeah.
I'm in your book. I'm in it.
I was going to say, which I'll have to read and see which, because your story is very much like you're rebounding from your story. Like you've gone full pendulum. This was you, and now you're
absolutely.
Over here.
But there's a reason why I'm writing this, is because I'm fully in this book.
Yeah.
Fully in this book.
So you found was it therapeutic for you in your past?
Yes and no. Yes, that you're reflecting back, and you're also thinking, was it that bad? Is it as bad as it played out in my head? But also, the adult Ciaran McBreene is putting his arm over the 14-year-old Ciaran McBreene, saying, yeah, that was tough, and
yeah,
sorry you had to go through that, but look, we met it, and we got through it.
Yeah.
You know,
What would you say to him?
great question. I would say to not to suffer alone. You know, don't put on this front. And as adults, you know, we all do this too as adults. But don't put on this front, and just fully show that you're in pain. Show it. Don't expect people to help you if they don't know that there's something that everything's okay. You know.
But you have to be. I mean, okay. So let's say you do. And your sentence is, "I tried and it didn't work."
Yeah, and that's, you know, I suppose it's a case of it didn't work on one person, so let's try somebody else.
Yeah.
And somebody else, and somebody. There's always somebody, and especially in today's society, you know, if the word self-harm or negative thoughts, or especially suicidal thoughts, come into a conversation, you know, alarm bells are rang, and we deal with them now. You know, back in the early 90s in Ireland, I don't know if it was accepted as much.
What age were you in the early 90s?
I would have been early teenage.
Yeah.
Teenage years, yeah.
Do you think? Let me ask you a different question. How prevalent is social media influences?
Oh, I mean, this is the thing, you know, and this is why we need to be aware of the power of social media. You know, there's one particular chapter where we're talking about social media and the power of Photoshop. You know, the power of taking somebody's face at a school party and putting it in a completely different environment.
Yeah.
And everybody laughing at this particular child. When I got off the bus after school, and when we all got off the bus and we all got home, school was finished, it was closed.
Yeah.
We could put on the telly, we could play with our friends up the fields, whatever we were doing. But now there's no hiding place. There's no hiding place. And just on that topic of people comparing themselves and their lives to others, the only time we would see a magazine is probably sitting in the doctor's waiting room, dentist's waiting room. You're now, children, young girls and boys are scrolling constantly seeing these so-called beautiful people and feeling so inferior to something that's actually not real.
Not only that, seeing the attention that's getting, seeing the followers, the likes, the actual, like, not only is that person looks kind of conceptually different, they are also like tangibly getting elevated, you know, and I'm not moving anywhere. That's the I don't understand why the like button is still a thing.
I know.
Why is it a thing? Like, we know.
Yeah.
Why is it displayed? Like,
remove it.
Get rid of it.
It's actually doing
for everybody, for adults.
Yeah,
for
but it's doing
men,
nobody any
women,
favors.
kids.
If you want to share an image of you and your family, or you on the beach, or whatever you're doing, share it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a popularity contest.
It also doesn't have to be on display, because in the stories on Instagram, it's the only one really I use. If somebody likes it, no one gets told about it. And if I like what you're doing, I can like it because I want you to know, right? And it's insignificant.
Yeah.
In the anyone who's not on the inside of your account, and I can talk to you about it directly with a message. I don't need to put a comment on it.
Yeah.
Why is a comment a thing? I don't care about anyone's opinion on these posts, but now I can't really turn off the comments because it's showing it's becoming common knowledge now that I'm avoiding people's comments. It's like I don't comment on my stuff.
I know.
But then again, the whole algorithm is geared towards paying me back for my effort with a comment. Do you know? So
do you know what the bottom line, Kate, is? It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
And to think, you know, let's say for example, it's your friend's child's birthday party, you know, and you didn't like the post. You know, this kind of nonsense goes on, or a family member say, you know, has something happened? You didn't like the post.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of a bloody world are we in?
Exactly.
You know.
Why is it a thing?
Yeah.
Because it's been around for long enough to know it's torture for people. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't change because it just doesn't need to be front facing. Do you know? Because you can't do a bad like. You can't dislike it. Why isn't so that doesn't exist? Thankfully. there's a limit. There is a threshold where they go, that's too much. A dislike button. YouTube has likes and dislikes. Instagram, I don't know about Facebook. I don't think it does. But like, I don't get why that's a thing. These people in these coding rooms, decision makers, they have kids. They must have kids. They must have accounts themselves. I'm nearly 40, and it's taking up some of my bandwidth in my brain.
And I can see that.
And yeah, it does. I just don't think it should be there, because I'm. This was the thing where when I was doing a lot more rehab posts, really boring neurology posts talking about pain. It's not something that's sexy and glamorous. It takes some time to explain it. So I would go film a chat, or I'd write a big long caption, or I'd create a graphic on image and I'd post it. I was like, this could change your life. Maybe not now, but you're going to have pain in your future. If you can understand, my mindset is, if you can understand this, it will help you.
So your post is educational?
It's trying to be, but it's so boring. It's such a boring, unglamorous post. And it was just like, it might as well have just blown past people in the wind, you know? And I was like, well, I won't do this.
Maybe you need to wear a bikini.
Mate, I've had that conversation with people loads, that if you're not getting 1,000 likes, you're not naked enough. You know? It's just, you're not taking enough clothes off. But maybe that's the platform. Maybe I need to get off that platform, focus my attention on a different platform, which is kind of like why I like doing these podcasts.
Yes.
It's totally different.
And then the reality is, though, Kate, from a business perspective, you know, you need to be talking to the right audience. And are these people who's liking and commenting or whatever your right audience? Possibly or possibly not. And that's what we need. We can't get too fully focused on it, because at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is create visibility. This is what Kate does. This is what Ciaran does.
Yeah.
You know,
in a pragmatic view of
has to work for you. You know,
because that's goal orientated. But teenagers don't have that.
No, and that's a completely different conversation. I completely agree with that. With teenagers, it's popularity, especially young girls. They put a post up of them going to a brunch from Dubai terms, for example, in their beautiful new dress, you know, and because the traction wasn't there, that could actually destroy the whole family's day out, because she's sulking in the mood now. I've seen it. I've dealt with this topic. Do you know?
Yeah.
So it's we're living in a sad place.
It's strange.
Sad place.
It's such an easy fix as well. Just switch it off. Just switch that little factor off. Just switch that little thing off. Then you'll get people, I think, like in the stories, people share way more stories than they share on their page, because it's not there to be as judged public facing. Do you know? I can put a story up and no one knows what happens to it. Who cares? Tap it and it's gone. But man, I don't know. I don't understand. I'm glad these chats, these groups, WhatsApp groups. I never thought about the Photoshop thing. That's terrifying.
It's horrendous. You know, it's horrendous.
It's going to get worse as well with the way, if you can change people's voices and you can make videos of Photoshop stuff.
What's going on now with you know, with AI, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen videos of people talking. They're actually not real people.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Right now, that I won't even say it take too long, but right now that's a big endeavor for somebody to do. But eventually, you're going to be able to like stick anyone's photo into this thing, and you're going to type in some words with your thumb, and you're going to pick one of 1,000 voices, and you got a mini video of somebody saying something on record.
Absolutely.
But anyway, let's shift to something a bit more positive. What have you got coming up? What's going on in your world?
Writing book number 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's the same idea as Listen, only with adults. So we're talking about talking tough stuff, marriage breakups. We're talking about anorexia. We're talking about having to bury their own children. You know, it's tough stuff, and you know, I'm all about voicing this tough stuff for people not to be alone with it. You know, in my own podcast, we bring people on, and we get them to talk about their story, and everyone has a story. You know, so when you come on, Kate, for example, it could be in my head, and I purposely won't do any research before it, because I want it to be natural in the conversation, but I could be expecting you to talk about the challenges of, you know, life in the industry that you work in. You could rock up and you could tell me something far, far, far deeper.
Yeah.
And that's the power of it. And if one person can resonate with that story, can connect with you, then we're moving in the right direction. back on social media, it drives me crazy that people will follow a celebrity in California and not follow you, not learn from you. We got to learn from each other, our brothers, our sisters, our moms, our dads, our children, our friends. But we've all got stories. So we've got experiential learning, so learn from each other. So we bring people on, we get them to talk about their challenging story, we get to hear their solutions. And your solution is much more real and achievable than some celebrity story, because your resources are more closer to mine and everyone else's here than David Beckham's, for example.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the book, you know. So we're bringing people on, excuse me, we're getting them to share their stories, and we're trying to give solutions. And of course, the solution isn't the fixed solution; it's just something to try, something to try. And with all the work I do with adults and teenagers, you know, is we try and educate them into you know, looking at different perspectives, reframing, understanding themselves, you know, bit of visualization, a bit of breath work or whatever. And sometimes things don't work, and that's fine, but we have to do what does work. So that's what I'm on at the moment. So I'm in the early chapters of that, but the whole framework is designed, and it's so I'm hoping, could be way off. I've given myself a little target to have it out for next Christmas.
So is it a similar kind of thing? You're taking stories, interviews, chats, and putting them together in kind of like each little mini narrative.
That's exactly it. You know, it's the book is designed for the 13-year-old Ciaran McBreene who doesn't like to read.
This one, just listen.
And the other one. You know, so even now when I go into
doesn't like to read. It's got pictures.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is that when I open a book, it needs to be aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
The text, the font, the spaces, everything. You know, it needs to be readable.
Yeah.
You know, my friend bought me the Nike book.
Shoe Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I opened it, Kate, and I said to myself, I'm never going to read this, because the text was so small.
Yeah, I read that book. It's, to be honest, I read that book being told it's one of the best books ever. It's so detailed, talking back from the stuff in the 70s. Right. I was like, I'm only reading this book because it's been recommended to me by a bunch of people who I hold to in a good esteem. Yeah. Right at the end, at the very end, he spends 2 or 3 pages explaining why all that stuff was important, and he kind of ties it together nicely, really fast, really quick. But man, you've got to get right to the end of that book. Yeah. You didn't miss much.
I haven't read it yet, and that's what I mean. So it's purposely short stories. You know, like in every story, I could write 4 times the amount, but I condense it to a short story. The key is the story's the hook. The story's the hook, and then the part 2 is the potential solution to support this particular challenge. Beautiful.
So this one is called Listen, Teenagers, Their Challenging Stories and How to Help Them. Ciaran McBreene. You don't have a name for the new one, the second one?
Not fully yet. I mean, in my head, it's obviously listen to adults, to challenging stories. However, we're going to have a play with that and
co-listen.
See.
So where can people follow you online? What's your podcast?
Yeah, my podcast is Let's Listen with Ciaran McBreene. My social media handle is at CMB Coach McBreene, and my website is cmbcoachingandtraining.com.
Okay, awesome. Well, cheers for coming in.
Pleasure.
Very interesting chat. I will read through this and see which chapter is me and let you know.
I'll be very intrigued to hear about it.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Good man. Thanks so much.